So for the past couple of weeks, we have been doing a sermon series on Bible stories, the adult version. We are going to look at a Bible story today, but we're going to do it just a little bit different than we have been. Because we're mostly going to be talking about friendship and what it means in our lives, and maybe a little bit on how we can have really good friendships. But I want to open with a disclaimer. I'm not talking about marriage today. Although a lot of what I say will fit, as your spouse should be one of your closest friends. So many of these things will apply to your marriage. But we're actually looking at your friends that are outside of that, the friendships that you build. And now we see that you can have many types of friendships. You can have acquaintances, which are usually people that you see once in a while, maybe at a function or two, and you have small talk. And then you might have some closer friends. These are people that you meet up with for coffee or have lunch once in a while with, and you know them a little bit better. You go a little bit below the surface in conversations with them. C.S. Lewis said, "Friendship is born at the moment when one person says to another, 'What, you too? I thought I was alone.'" We see that a lot in our friendships that are acquaintances and in our close friends. But there is a place that in friendships you go beyond that. And we have some friends that are really close, some of our closest friends. These are people we talk to regularly. We share intimate details of our lives with each other. Our relationship is intimate. We may have shared secrets with them. We may have shared our fears, our hopes with them. And we don't usually have that many people that we would call our closest friends. And then, some of us have friends that we call our best friends. Now, these are the ones who know us the best. They really know us. These are the people we feel comfortable telling anything to, and they are our closest companions. I think that it's hard to put a title on friendships or a label. All friendships are different. Every relationship you have with another person is different. But there is something good to say about the way that we look at this. There is some definite truth in the relationships that we build, where some are surface level and some get deeper. We learn we can trust and find safety in people. So as I was preparing this sermon, I sent out a text to about 5 or 6 of my closest friends. I wanted to see what made our friendship special. What was it about our friendship that was special? These are some people I consider very close to myself. Now, of course, the comments were really nice, and that wasn't my goal. I wanted to find the common thread. What was the common thread between these relationships other than myself? Most of these women don't know each other at all, and if they do, it wouldn't be anything more than acquaintances. They come from different walks of life. The common thread, the answer I got from everybody, was trust, honesty, and safety. And I feel the same about them. This is where I was hoping the common thread would be, because this is how I feel. When I say trust, we trust each other, not just in that I can say something and you won't go around town telling everyone I say it, but we trust that you actually want the best for me, that you have my best interests at heart. It's a trust that we have in one another. And when I say honesty, the one thing that everyone pointed out was that they know I will be honest with them even when they don't want to hear what I have to say. And the same goes for them. These are women who speak into my life in ways that others could not. They've earned that right, and they are honest with me. Even at times, I don't like what they're saying. And this idea of being safe, what do we mean by being safe? Well, we all know that we can truly be ourselves, at our best or at our worst. We're not judged, and we don't always have to be strong. We don't always have to be the strong one in the room. We often become friends with people who are like us. We find ourselves surrounded by people who are like us. And of course, having something in common helps to build the foundation of a friendship. But I would say that my most interesting friendships are ones with people who I have as much opposite as I do in common. So I'm going to tell you about a few of my friends here. Most of you here have heard about Jessica. We met working at a bead store, so we both were very crafty and liked to make jewelry. When I met Jessica, Brianna was less than a year old, and she just had this amazing, you could tell she was going to be a great mom. We got along really well, and then our friendship grew from there. But what we don't have in common is our faith. I am a Christian. I take my faith seriously. Jessica is an atheist, and she takes her beliefs seriously. This is a big opposite in our relationship, yet we have managed over years to have a very close relationship and to find that we have many things in common and to have a respect for each other, a respect for that difference in us that has allowed us to have a friendship. And there's Omely. Omely and I went to the same church for a long time, and so we saw each other in passing. But we actually became friends when we both started attending Celebrate Recovery. So we have something in common. But there are some really big differences, and I was thinking this morning, I wish I had gotten a picture of her. Omely is Jamaican, and she has beautiful dark skin, and I am obviously not. So this is the one thing we joke about a lot, that we look complete opposites. But not just in the color of our skin. Omely loves to exercise. Like, she can be a little obsessive about it. It's the way that she unplugs. She's an avid runner and has even run in the Boston Marathon a few years ago. And I like to take walks, and I don't really like sweating. So this is not something we have in common. But there is a bond between us in this honesty and in this love. Omely we used to call me. She's the kind of students professors would love. She takes her schoolwork very seriously and has to have an A. So there would be times that she would call me as she was going through anesthesiology school, and she would say, I failed the test. And I'd be like, okay, what grade did you get? I got a B. I finally told her, the next time you call me and tell me you failed, I'm hanging up on you. She was so hard on herself. And I'm not really that kind of student. I like to get good grades, and yes, there have been times where I spent hours working on a paper and got a B where I was like, oh. But in general, I tend to let my life be a little bit more important. My life, meaning my family, my work, my relationships, tend to sometimes be a little more important. And so we balance each other. She reminds me how important it is that I study, and sometimes I have to remind her how important it is that she puts the book down and interacts in life. So we have a great relationship. But we're not the same. One more. There's Dana. Dana and I met when we worked at a call center together. We ended up in the same training class. And we just kind of got along. We did some tasks together, some training things. And then one day she looks at me and says, I'm either pregnant or going into early menopause. A few weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. And Dana was pregnant. So this kind of sealed our friendship. We went through this journey together. But the big difference in us is age. Dana was 41, and I was 26 when we got pregnant. So there's a big age difference there. And there's other differences. But we have stayed very good friends, and our daughters are friends. Going through this journey together sealed that friendship. I could keep going, but this isn't about me. What I was hoping to point out in this is that we can have friends from all walks of life. People you wouldn't really expect to be friends with. People who may not look like you, who may not always have the same in mind with you. And sometimes these are the best friendships. They're the friendships that give you the most growth as you get to know people differently and see things from a different point of view. Sometimes some of my hardest conversations about my faith and my struggle with God and any of that stuff can be had with Jessica, which seems really strange. But Jessica so respects where I come from that when she is giving me advice or when she is listening, she does it from the point of view that I come from. She knows what I feel, what I say. She knows on a good day exactly what I would say. So on a bad day, she reminds me of who I am on my best days. I have found these friendships to be challenging. They challenge me in the best way possible. They challenge me to be my best self, either by their words or by the way they live their lives. I am reminded that I am to be the best self possible. Now, before being a Christian, and definitely before finding any healing in Christ, these kind of friendships would not have been possible for me. I had many friendships in my life before being a Christian, But they were, friends. You hung out with, you went to the party with, they were friends. Some of those relationships were serious. I mean, we were really friends. But there was a level of friendship that was very different, and they were all like me. Meaning that we all worked at the same place, we all went to the same club, we all drank the same beer. They were like me. We all acted the same way. When I chose to start acting different and to start going to church, that changed those relationships. They could not withstand that change. So there's a difference. Charles Swindoll has made the observation that the neighborhood bar is possibly the best counterfeit that there is to the fellowship in Christ. The fellowship Christ wants us to have in the church. It's an imitation that dispenses liquor instead of grace, escape rather than reality, but it's permissive and it's accepting and inclusive. It's unshockable. It's democratic. You can tell people your secrets, and they don't usually tell others nor want to. The bar flourishes not because most people are alcoholics, but because God has put into the human heart the desire to know and be known, to love and to be loved. And so many seek a counterfeit at the price of a few beers. This really does sum it up well, as I was talking about those previous relationships. That sums up what they were. So I'm sure many of us remember the TV sitcom Cheers. If not remembering the show, we will at least recognize the theme song.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. You wanna go where people know people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they are always glad you came. You want to be where you see our troubles are all the same. You want to be where everybody knows your name. Isn't it sad that this song was written about a bar instead of the house of God? Isn't that what we all really want, is to be accepted? In true friendship, there is a knitting together of souls, in love and affection. We all want and need warm affection of other human beings. We want and need unconditional love. We need people we can talk with and laugh with and sing with and pray with and even cry with. We need people that we don't have to have our guard up with. We need people we can just breathe freely, where our souls can be naked with them. You can say what you think and share what you feel and admit your vanities and your weaknesses, and they will still look at you the same. Have you ever sat in a room and thought, if I tell these people who I really am or what I'm really thinking, they're all going to go running out of here? Well, part of recovery, that is something you do. You sit in a room with people and you tell them some of your darkest secrets, and it's always with this fear like they're going to take off on it, or they're never going to look at me the same. They're not going to want to be my friend. And what you often find is when you allow that vulnerability, people want it. They take it. Now, there are always going to be people, we're humans, and there are going to be people who are going to hurt us. But the vast majority of people will guard that. They will see your honesty and your vulnerability, and they will guard it, and they will appreciate it, and it will bring the same out in them. We want people that will ask us to put nothing on, only to be who we are. They like us and they love us for who we are and who we can become. They may see us, a future us that we do not see. These types of relationships are priceless. But there is a Bible story that tells us of a friendship like this. It's the friendship of Jonathan and David. This friendship starts oddly enough. David is standing in front of the king of Israel, Saul. He has just defeated the giant Goliath. And Jonathan, Saul's son, hears David as he talks to Saul. This is going to be in 1 Samuel 18, 1 through 5. When David had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was bound to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Saul took him that day and would not let him return to his father's house. And then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. Jonathan stripped himself of his robe he was wearing and gave it to David, and his armor, and even his sword, and his bag, and his belt. A covenant is a promise of an enduring friendship. It's a promise of a friendship that we don't often see today. When we hear of covenant, most often we think of our marriages. That is a covenant relationship. But so are our friendships. Our friendships, our real friendships, should be covenant relationships. So there's some significance here. We see Jonathan takes off his robe and puts it on David. What is significant about that? The significance is that it plays a public role. So this was a big deal in their time. This covenant type of friendship was a big deal. Jonathan is saying, I am giving you my robe. And this means that, say you see David out walking and he's wearing Jonathan's robe and you see him from a distance, you might think that that is Jonathan. Just the same as, if someone else was wearing this bright orange dress and you saw them, you might think they were me from a distance. But up close, what it tells people is David is wearing Jonathan's robe. So if I mess with David, if I offend David, if I interact with David in any way, I am doing the same with Jonathan. It's kind of how we feel. We often say, don't mess with my friends. It's the same idea, but a little more seriously. And this was something that was known in their community. So people would look at David and know that he was Jonathan. But we have to keep in mind, Jonathan was a prince, and David was a shepherd boy. So David didn't have anything to give Jonathan. And we see as a result of this covenant over the next chapters develops a great friendship between Jonathan and David. This friendship transcends personal ambition and family circumstances. Jonathan may be the king's son, but he knows that someday David will be taking the throne. So Jonathan really shouldn't like David. But he can see in David the Spirit of God at work and is more interested in the man than he is in his own personal ambition. That is a great contrast to his father. David continues to have success living in Saul's house, and Saul becomes even more jealous of him. Jonathan would defend David to his father. On one occasion, Jonathan even had to dodge his own father's spear because of his support for David. Jonathan set aside his own personal ambition, even willing to go against his father to support his friend. This is a gift. This is a friendship that is a gift to David. He was the friend that David needed just when David needed him. Jonathan's love counterbalances Saul's hatred. It's no wonder David was devastated when Jonathan died. He even wrote a song about Jonathan, and part of it goes like this. This is in 2 Samuel 1, 25 to 27. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of the battle. Jonathan lay slain upon your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Greatly beloved were you to me. Your love to me was wonderful, passing the love of a woman. How the mighty have fallen and the weapons of war perish. Now, that can be pretty shocking. Today, when we think of love and like this, we think of only the people, our spouses, our significant other. We don't think of loving someone in that way that is not that. But the truth is, for real friendship, for friendship that is deep and solid, for friendship where both people have a commitment to it, love exists. Love that is different than the marital love. I love my husband in a different way than I love my best friends. But I do love them. I do miss them. The same as I would if my husband was gone. There's a different love and a different relationship. But there is love. This covenant relationship between Jonathan and David surpasses just the two men. It goes into their families. This was taken very seriously. When they took on a covenant relationship, they swore to care for the other one's family. So whoever were to die first, in this case Jonathan, David had sworn to care for Jonathan's family. As the story goes, years have passed by since Jonathan died, and so David now meets Mephibosheth. I hope to get that right every time I have to say it. This is Jonathan's son, the grandson of Saul, the king who tried to kill David. So Saul had tried to kill David, and David took over the throne. And this is said to have happened about the time that Mephibosheth was 5. When the news came that Jonathan and Saul were dead, the nurse took him to hide and fell and dropped the boy, and he became lame. She ran because it was custom of that time for the new king to kill all the male heirs of the previous king. This would have included Mephibosheth. So David should have killed every male related to Saul. But David did not follow that custom. Instead, he chose to stay true to the covenant he had made with Jonathan. And so David asked Ziba, a servant of Saul's, in 2 Samuel 9:3, "Is there anyone remaining of the house of Saul to whom I may show the kindness of God?" And Ziba says to the king, "There remains a son of Jonathan. He is crippled in his feet." And David sent for him. When Mephibosheth came to him, he fell on his face because he was afraid. In verse 7, David says to him, "Do not be afraid, for I will show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land of your grandfather Saul, and yourself shall eat at my table always." He did obscene and said, "What is your servant that you should look upon a dead dog such as I?" Mephibosheth, knowing what should have taken place. Mephibosheth and later his son Micah ate at David's table for the rest of their lives. They ate at the king's table. This was a friendship that lasted because David and Jonathan were committed to their friendship. If you go back and read the whole story, which would have taken way too long this morning, but you will see how many times Jonathan held up his end as he snuck out to see David while David was hiding from Saul. How he kept David safe from Saul, and yet still honored his father. They took this commitment to their relationship to be serious. This is a good model of friendship today. I hope that the Lord has blessed you with such a friend. For some of us, we've had close friends and we've drifted apart over the years. At times, we may feel that others seem to be too distant and wonder if they're even our friends anymore. It's always easier to see how others fail to hold up their part in friendship and in everything. It's always easier to feel sorry for ourselves. But in real friendship, in real committed friendship, we should always be examining our own hearts. We should always be asking ourselves, how do I fall short in this relationship? Have I been selfish instead of self-sacrificing? Most of us want friends for what they can do for us. But we really should want friends for what we can do for them. The easiest way to make friends is to be interested in people. To be interested in other people in their lives. And to be willing to be vulnerable in those relationships. God created us for community and relationship. No one in this world can make it on their own. Now, there are people who will tell you they have. That's not true. They may have only had superficial relationships. They may not have had any good relationships. but they did not make it on their own. We are not capable of that. So the truth is, we have to invest in relationships. We have to invest in people. So why not do it at the best? Why not invest in people and relationships that can shape our lives just as we shape theirs? Why not invest in relationships that lift you up instead of putting you down? People who will let you cry when something happens, but maybe not lay around feeling sorry for yourself for too long. My mom passed away. My friends did not try to push me too fast through the grieving process, but they didn't let me lay in bed for weeks upon weeks either. They knew the fine place to be, the place to be my friend and to lift me up, and the place to be where I could just sit and cry. These are the people we need in our lives. People who understand us and how we work. Only one time, after going through school or graduating with a 4.0, she had to take this test that, like they have, doctors and nurses have to take before they can actually start their career. And they have to pass this test. So they've done all this work, but if they don't pass this test, none of it matters. So the first time she took the test, she did not pass, which was shocking and very upsetting. And she was having a very hard time with it. And she sent me a picture of herself one day having a bad moment. And was like, this is how I feel. And I was like, okay, I'm going to drop off the groceries and I'll be at your house in 10 minutes. And she then was like, no, I'm getting up. But she knew I understood. I understood that her heart was broken. I had cried with her and I had prayed with her. But now it was time to get up, study, and take that test again because you know you can pass it. She has done the same for me when I have struggled in places in my recovery. To say, okay, I love you, now it's time to get up. It is important to have those people in our lives, and that only happens by investing in those relationships. So as I've been talking, there may be someone that God has been revealing to you, that He wants you to invest in their life. Or is there someone that God is leading you to make a positive impact on? Is there a spiritual friendship that has been neglected but needs to be renewed? Is there a truth that God is leading you to share with someone who you currently have a relationship with, but you resisted being vulnerable out of fear of rejection? As we've been talking through this, I hope that God has been stirring in your heart either the fond memory of this friend in your life or the name of the person that you need to reach out to. So we're going to play a little bit of music in the background, and we're going to pray together to see that God wants us to do in response to His word. If you can make your way to the altar, we'll pray at the altars. If not, please feel free to pray where you're at, and we will do that for a few minutes